Well, hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for another discussion on our community and addictions. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos. Today, we are joined by Jessica. Jessica, you are a peer. You tell me your title, I completely just spaced just in the moment, but you are a peer recovery specialist. Is that correct?
Yes, a certified peer recovery
Okay.
specialist.
That is amazing. So, um, with the scope on what I understand about your position with Mayo and everything is that there's a lot of conversation you can have today. And I want to honor our listeners' times as well as ours. Um, and so hopefully we can have you come back for further discussion on this. But Jabbar, is there a direction you want to lead us on as we talk, and Jessica can share her insight? Is there a way that you think we should lead off, or should we go with
Um,
my suggestions?
I don't have
Okay.
a direction necessarily. I think that
Okay.
Jessica probably has a lot to say
Okay.
and probably some good things to hear. So,
Well, then
I if you don't mind, I might pop in a question or two here and
For
there.
sure.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
so let's start off then at the front. Family goes through an intervention, or they that first new patient walks through the doors. Um, Kind of describe for us a little about what might entail in that moment. Maybe the patient's state of mind, maybe the state of mind of the family. Those first few moments, I think, at least in my perspective, where those first few moments where a lot of the fear might be centralized. What can you tell us a little bit about that, or kind of like shed some light on that?
So there's a couple different ways that people come into treatment. One, some of them come from the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
Either they're injured or they're heavily impaired, and then they can come from there to us. Now, as a treatment center, we like to strike when the iron's hot.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, if somebody needs help, we can't give it 7 to 10 business days.
Right.
So we work hard to try to get them in as soon as possible. Um, if we have the staff there, if it's midnight on a Saturday, we'll do what we can to get them in as soon as possible. But if it's like noon on a Tuesday, we can get you in if we have the resources there, and insurance, we can deal with that kind of later.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a way that we can go back and kind of deal with that, but we just need to get you safe, and we need to get you into a place where we can stabilize you. And so first, our first priority is to stabilize you medically.
Right.
If somebody comes in, most of the time they're going to be heavily impaired.
Okay.
There's a certain level where if they are too impaired, it is a danger to them. And so then they will have to be in the emergency room just to get stabilized and make sure that, they're okay, because withdrawals can be very scary, and sometimes they're not always the most coherent.
Right.
Sometimes I'm not sure, what is in your system, and you're not sure what's in your system at times. People have blacked out before. So our first priority is to get them medically stable, and then after that, we get them in as soon as possible so we can provide them, with meals. We definitely want to hydrate them.
Right.
And so as soon as they come in, whether they're officially in yet or not, we're gonna give them, meals. We'll feed them, and we'll give them, hydration, and make sure that their bottom line, that they're stable and they're healthy. A lot of times we have family drop them off. We encourage questions.
Mm-hmm.
We love questions. We're more than willing to answer any questions anybody has. We've had friends drop people off before. I like to talk to them right away when they're in, introduce myself, welcome them there,
Right.
so they have a face and a name that goes with it. In case they have a question later, they can call and ask for me. And then I'd like to tell them right away that they might not be able to call right away,
Right.
because we like to have somebody focus first on like what's going on around them.
Well, and kind of like what you said earlier, where you're working on that isolation. We want to make sure that they're in a control. In my mind, I'm picturing a controlled location where this is an addict. This is they're gonna reach for something to self medicate. We want to make sure that they're in a place where they have nothing else to focus on except this particular process. Does that make sense? Or
Yes. Well, a lot of times it can be very overwhelming, and so we need to prioritize. If there's somebody who's maybe intoxicated, we are not going to have them go through everything, and write down a list of all of their important phone numbers.
Right.
We need to do the basis first. We need to get our immediate paperwork done, in order to, legally admit them.
Right.
And then we kind of triage after that,
Right.
so we take the most important part, and then we also, like I said, take care of the health wise too, for the patient. We check in their medications, and we make sure, we obviously get a baseline urine test, so we know what's going on with them.
And the drug test, whether it's urine, hair follicle, all the variety. I know there's different means, but we want to see what's in their system, because then that helps you understand back to what you said about their baseline. I'm getting understanding where they're at. How can I treat this person?
Well, and sometimes nowadays in today's society, you don't know what's in there. Maybe they weren't aware that they had something in their system.
Right.
And we need to know that both medically and, so we can understand if maybe tomorrow, you sleep all day. Well, now I know why. And so we're able to treat them a little bit better.
So I would like to know, what determines who's an addict, who's not. I mean, because some people have one night where they might get intoxicated and end up in the emergency room. You know what I mean? So what do you guys do in particular that kind of sorts that out? And once you determine they're an addict, or I don't know how that would work, I guess, in as far as that goes, but is the family informed? Or are they kind of left out of it, unless if they're the ones who bring it in? Do you understand what I'm kind of getting at? So first I want to know, what is it that determines that they're an addict so that they can get into your treatment? And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know that there is such thing as a Rule 25. Maybe you could kind of explain that just a little bit so that other people can understand how, because I know that insurance can be an issue for people who want help but don't know how, because their insurance won't do it. So I know that Rule 25 kind of has a play in that sometimes. So so I know I just asked several questions.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So as far as who is an addict and what determines that, Rule 25, or a complete chemical assessment, that is to basically gauge what level of care that you need.
Okay.
Some people maybe just need outpatient. Some people need treatment. Now, in general, substance use disorder rehabilitation, that's not something that maybe everybody agrees with. Maybe I think I just need 1 hour a week,
Right.
but the expert thinks that maybe I need a little bit more.
Right.
So
Well,
that's,
as an addict, I'm going to resist either way, because this is something that might change in my life, and I'm not sure I'm ready for change, because that means I have to let go of these drugs. So no, I fully get where somebody might be like, well, I don't need all that, maybe I should just go to a meeting once in a great while, so, and I've seen that several times.
And I had an encounter where the idea of going and presenting someone with a in-person treatment was repulsed, but they were willing to go to like a Celebrate Recovery, stuff like that.
Right.
And that was one, I've seen those things as well in what I do.
Right, but the function of somebody's mind coming in as an addict is probably not the best. So, So how do you guys? Well, you can finish what you were saying. Also, I'm sorry, but how do you guys get them past that whole idea of, because they think they're right? Obviously, I know I always thought I was right, and for me, having an addict mind, I always want to resist, and I always want to try and get away from, actually helping myself, because I'm not thinking right. So, how do you actually get them past that point to actually see it more clearly? Do you start to touch in some of these, well, look at what's happened. You got a DWI. Look at, you're ruining your life. How does that work? And I know I'm getting past where we were, but if you can kind of go through that for me, I'd appreciate it. So.
Yeah, definitely. And some of it, with the chemical health assessment, some disagree. Some it's not a shock. And then sometimes we have like the court, or family help us with, this is what you need to do. These are your consequences if you don't. Now, with treatment centers, nobody is blocked from leaving. We don't tackle anybody when they're trying to walk out.
Right.
They're going for the door.
Yeah, we don't, it's the doors are always open. You might not be able to come in. We do have, lockdown unit, but you can always leave. Now, the consequences that you face on the other side of that door are your own, and we will warn them of the consequences.
Right.
But we will help you pack your stuff, and, we will escort you out, and, you don't face any shame. We don't, throw your stuff on the ground. Like we, escort you out, and then from there, you face your own consequences. A lot of people, it's the consequences that keep them in there. And then after a period of time where they do adjust and they start to, get a little bit more clarity, then they choose to stay there, which is really nice. Usually it's the first 3 days is what we call like the focus period, because that's when they're gonna leave, or stay.
Within that first week, that very first few days.
The first few days.
Yeah.
Like I said, when they come in, we try to make the admission as nice as possible. We welcome them. We get right down to brass tacks. We do the minimum that we have to do at that moment. We don't want to drown you in paperwork or information.
Right.
And then we do welcome you onto the unit. We've got the other patients that are there, and they come and introduce themselves. Usually somebody who's been there a little bit longer will show them around. Sometimes they just want to go to their room, and then we just bring their food into their room. We do have, we offer the 3 meals a day, and then we have snacks here in Albert Lee at our Fountain Centers Treatment Center. It's located in the Mayo Clinic building.
See, that's important for me. I mean, I like my snacks. That's stuff.
Yeah.
Right then you get that. Food is a great comfort.
And it's really beneficial that Fountain Centers is located in the hospital, because there is a lot of dangers when somebody is first coming off of those drugs. The side effects, it can be anywhere from, hallucinations or seizures or, vomiting or, anything like that. And so we do have medical staff everywhere, and so it takes about a minute and a half to get to the emergency room,
And I can see that too, because in my own research, the level of the level of self-harm that they want to put on themselves because of that. So, not just the hallucinations like you were saying, just the psychosis part of it all, but even the physical, I'm going to hurt myself so that there's some kind of chemical release in my own body to experience that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not just the drug. I mean, the drug itself obviously has serious adverse effects to your body, but it's also the side effects of that. Maybe lack of food, if you haven't been eating, lack of water in your system, dehydration, lack of sleep. I mean, that does a huge toll on your body. So there's a lot of other things that go with that.
So you're saying meth is bad?
Yes, it is bad.
Yeah.
Well, they got what is like. There's meth mouth. There's that dry. I mean, the research I've done just in the last 3 or 4 days I feel like I'm a growing encyclopedia right now with a lot of this stuff, and so because when you have a loved one that you see these signs and you're like, okay, I need to do something about this. That's the process.
So okay, let me ask you this. So if I'm a family member and I'm concerned about, my daughter's or whoever is on meth, how do I contact you? Because I feel like a lot of people don't even know what to do. They just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do other than call the police and maybe have them sent to jail. And kind of the whole point of our conversation is we would like to see people not have to go through that part of it, and maybe push them into starting something different. So how do I get in touch? How do I what kind of a process happens if, say, a family member calls? You know,
If a family member calls,
how do they call, first of all? Who do they call?
so we are on the Mayo Clinic website. You can stop in to the Mayo Clinic location. We are on the second floor of the psychiatry and psychology department, specifically the substance use disorder. We are the addictions department. And so anybody can call. Our receptionists are amazing. They've worked there for many years. Every single one of our staff. A lot of us are in the addiction part. Not currently, but a lot of us have a lot of experience with addiction. And having been in this job for a while now, any of us who answer the phone can talk. With a little weight behind it, like any of us.
And I, when you say any of us, I'm also thinking, because again, with it being online, the immediate reach is going to go beyond Freeborn County.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if maybe you can't reach the Mayo Clinic here in Albert Lea, but you have a hospital in near to your proximity, wherever that might be, whether it's in Washington State, Oregon, Bemidji, however far, and so they can contact a hospital receptionist
Mm-hmm.
or the addiction office in
Yes.
said hospital, and be directed. Like, you don't have to call some special, like, know who exactly you're calling. You call the
Yep.
reception office at the hospital, request the addiction, and they will route the call for you and get you in there
Mm-hmm.
as soon as possible.
Yeah, you call, any of us, and it doesn't matter who answers the phone, we're all going to stop and we're going to take the time and we're going to talk to you and we're going to walk you through it. And even if we, cannot help you, like we have our addiction department in Albert Lea, we have a residential unit. It's 18 beds, and it's all males.
Okay.
It's not women or adolescents. We're hoping in the future to expand. It was previously women, adolescents, and detox. COVID obviously played a role in a lot of,
Yes.
the treatment centers. We are coming back from that. We're coming back very strong. We do have a lot of community involved. And we're seeing a lot more uptake in people who are willing to come into treatment and complete our treatment program. And so we are hoping to bring that back. But like, if you're a woman and you call, we will still take your call.
Right.
We will do the best we can to help you, and we will get you on to that next step.
We can't take you here.
Yes.
But we will plug you in over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. Now, you mentioned COVID, and one of the things that, and we might have discussed this in a previous episode session, where some of the effects of COVID, it really kind of brought a lot of this usage stuff to light, kind of revealed a lot of things, it maybe even contributed to others, and so now there's this epidemic of drug use is now rampant, and we're trying to respond to that, and so now you're as a peer recovery specialist, you're leading a way in that particular field as Mayo is trying to make that a key role in their care. You're one of the first. I don't know if you're the first, but you're one of the firsts in that as they're putting this program together.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kind of share a little bit about that if you're able to.
Absolutely. So Fountain Centers has been around for 50 years. Mayo Clinic a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And so we are branching out our services. We currently do co-occurring, so we don't just focus on the drug part of it. We also have, we just have whole teams of people that are dedicated to help the entire holistic part of it. We deal with what caused you, to want to use in the first place. We try to get deeper than that. We have the initial, we need to initially get those drugs out of your system, and we're able to take that also. Some places you maybe have to have a certain amount of sober time before you come in. With us, we don't. We have RN on our staff trained daily on the unit, 24/7. We are staffed 24/7, and we've all been trained on how to take care of many different issues. And so you can come in, and a lot of times we have people who are sick, and We take your vitals many times a day. We keep a close eye on you to make sure that there's no danger to yourself or others.
Right.
And, we get you through that period. And so we make sure that you get safe and settled. And usually that's when the treatment can start, is when the drugs clear.
Right.
Maybe not all the way, but, when you start thinking clearly. Because for an addict, a lot of times with recovery, it's moments of clarity. You're not going to have an addict who decides a week straight that they need to be sober, and then the next week, a lot of times it's back and forth. When you're really messed up, that's when you all of a sudden, I hate this life, I need to do something, and that's where we come in, is people can walk right into our lobby, and like I said earlier, we will try to get them in as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can get those assessments. People put themselves in all the time also. Sometimes people do it for their families. Your wife wants you to come in, your kids want you to come in. We have court involved, obviously, probation, CPS, all sorts of reasons behind, but some people decide they've had enough themselves. Now, inpatient is the scariest part of it, I would say. Outpatient's a couple hours a week,
right.
Celebrate recovery.
Going for my check-in.
Yeah, for sure. Inpatient, that is scary. But it's really, I believe, necessary to give people that time, because 1 hour, when you change your life, addiction, getting clean and sober is about changing your life. They have a saying.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead and say that saying, and then I got a question for you.
You change your playground, you change your playthings, and you change your playmates.
That's awesome.
The only thing you have to change is everything.
Yeah.
And that's what they say.
We mentioned that. We talked about that. Well, yeah, one of the things that my statement / question and one of the things that I hear is, you mentioned how, we get them into a clear state of mind. The drugs in the system has worn off, but then you go in and you talk about why they started using in the first place. And I think that's an important thing for us to recognize, and this kind of is statement and question at the same time, is that drugs are, the using is just a symptom of other underlying issues, whether it was feelings of rejection and wanting acceptance, or maybe to deal with maybe self-medicating for lethargy, just tiredness, wanting energy. I had to survive doing finals in college, and this helped. I mean, kind of those things where there was another need that had to be presented, and then they started using to meet said need, and now they find themselves in these claws, and they just need help getting back out.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of that. I mean, addiction itself is, maybe you had some trauma and then you turned to the drugs to help you cope with that. And with the drugs comes a certain type of lifestyle. Yeah. And sometimes that lifestyle leads to more trauma, that you use more drugs to cope with.
So is someone predisposed to addiction? I mean, how does May or Fountain Center see that? Are they, was I always an addict? It's just that something triggered it, and I became the person that, is it a predisposition or?
So that's actually a really, really good question. And so addiction can, run in your genes, It doesn't necessarily make you it. If they say that alcoholics, their children are 4 times more likely to develop a drinking problem. Some of it is nature versus nurture.
That learned behavior kind of thing.
And some of it is both.
Right.
Both, it's in your genes, and also it's in your house, and it's in your face, and it's in your, culture. It's in all of it. It's right in front of you. So that's a part of it too. And some of it is, it's brain chemistry. They do teach that. Yeah. So it's dopamine. You need dopamine to survive. And so when you first start using, like the brain is made to go to 100 for dopamine, 100 micrograms or whatever the number is. Anyways, there's a really cool YouTube video on it. So the brain is supposed to go to 100. On a really bad day, you're like at 40, right? On your best day ever, you're going to be at like 90, right? And then when you take meth, it can go up to 1,000 for dopamine.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so, and all the other drugs too, they can go in the high hundreds.
So you're going from the the brain function, the brain functioning, and the chemical release it's supposed to give, and the output, I should say. I'm no scientist or medical professional. I'm a pastor, but you have that that 100% capacity, and then they take, like you said, dopamine, and it takes it to that 1,000. So you have your bad days and your good days within the normal. Here's your operating parameters. You take that drug, and it's like, nope, we're gonna just bust the tank.
Yep.
And then what I hear and what I've seen is you take those things, you bust the tank, and the body says, I don't know how to respond. And then you enter into a psychosis. You enter into the symptoms. You enter into
that would explain a lot of depression, I would think, and things like that. Because if you're so used to being way up here, and then all of a sudden you're not using, and you're like in normal ranges, to you that would probably feel like you're, sad, depressed, like the dopamine isn't really, because your brain has to catch up somewhere, and I'm assuming that that's why treatment is a good thing, is because it gives your brain some time to really like adjust. Like we had talked about before, you have to kind of reroute.
Yeah.
Well,
like you said, you're rerouting the brain lines. You had mentioned, you had said, what was, you had mentioned something about the active thinking, like the I don't know, what is the word? You had mentioned it, and I can't remember it. It's basically just being mindful of the way that you think, and actively brain training. I can't think this way anymore. I have to think this way. And that's kind of the same way we have mentioned that whole idea of I've got to learn how to think this way. When this particular
change your tapes.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's like, hey, this thing, when you have them in treatment and you're addressing the symptoms, you're addressing the symptoms, but then you want to get down to the root cause. Well, so the root cause was this is what you were doing, and this is why you started using. So when this issue arises again, how are you going to think about it? And you have to retrain them how to think about that issue, so that they say, okay, when I had a bad day at work, I would go home and I would get high to make myself feel better. Well, I can't do that anymore. So when I have a hard day at work, I have to do something else.
Go to a meeting.
Go to,
talk to your sponsor.
Exactly. Yeah, that's reprogramming.
Do some step work.
Well, it's more than just thoughts. I mean, when we talk about that dopamine, that is like chemical. That is your body, and so it's not just your thoughts. It's a lot deeper than that. When you come down off of that drug, a lot of times your dopamine can go down to 10.
Yeah, because it's used to being supplemented.
Yes, and your worst day was 40. At 10, you don't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so in order for your brain to keep functioning, your brain is telling you that if you do not get that dopamine, you will not survive.
Yeah.
So it's not about, the way your thoughts are going. Your body is telling you, you need this right now.
So it's more than just reprogramming your thoughts. You talk about reprogramming the brain. Yes. We're talking about taking the entire computer down to basics, letting it run itself. You will hate how you feel, but the brain's got to reacquire what levels it used to output, because it can't be dependent on these things.
So that kind of explains some of the compulsion and the obsessiveness you have when it comes to actually using. I guess I didn't really realize that when you kind of that your body's just like, hey, I really I mean I understood that that's what was happening, but I never really fully understood that it was because your function comes way down, that you're like, fucking. So you're always thinking, because I know that when I was in active addiction, my only focus most of the time was to get high, or to plan to get high later on, because I already got the stuff to get high now. But you know what I mean? But like my whole focus in life was, hey, I need to get high, so let's just continue this on. And it was an obsession. It was compulsive, and that kind of explains to me somewhat about why my thought process when I didn't have something was, I'm going to go do this,
right,
so that I can make sure I have this, I mean, I'm not saying that it was right. I'm just saying that, that compulsion drove me in a lot of ways. Um, and it explains it a little
Yeah,
bit
you
better.
have a
Because
better
I-
understanding of the compulsion. Like we know the compulsion is there. We know the desire is there
it's a
to use.
chemical.
And now we understand the science behind the
Yes,
compulsion.
it's basic survival. That's how you can take a good person and
That's
they
really
can
how it
steal
felt, too.
grandma's silverware and they
Right.
can do that. There's a study where they have taken addicts and they have dehydrated addicts and they put a glass of water in front of them and their brain lights up because that's what their brain needs. And then they've taken addicts who haven't had food and they've put food in front of them, their favorite food, and their brain lights up also. And then they put the drug in front of them and their brain lights up twice as much.
Really?
So the drug, just having the dopamine actually outweighs, food and water.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Wow.
It is.
And it's true. It
Yeah.
really is. I don't know how much of that you had, but I know I would go days without eating, without sleeping, without as long as I was able to get high.
Right.
Everything else went to the side, and
because the desire for the addicted substance outweighs, like you said, it outweighs everything else.
Everything,
Wow.
And so the addiction, we have to change the thoughts, but honestly, getting them sober, getting them from the point of having been awake and under the influence and, in their psychosis, you need to first, in order to get those thoughts in, you need to first get them healthy.
Yeah.
It is very dangerous to try to get somebody sober without proper medical help, depending on their level.
What they're using and all that, and at the level of usage.
that's why I think jail is such a. I mean,
it's not the best.
Well, and a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of us, but for me, that was the only way that I had that time away from the drugs that I was using, and I didn't realize how dangerous that really could be.
Yeah.
And it just seems weird to me that the jails, they don't have those kinds of
they don't have the treatment that the hospital brings.
well, they don't have the resources to deal with an addict, and it just
no,
it doesn't make
nor
sense.
the staff.
Right.
We in a treatment center, we take vitals,
Right.
hourly. We breathalyze you. We're constantly, continued care with that person, and we check in on them. If you were my son and I put you in, my spare bedroom to detox, and you were sleeping it off, little do I know that I need to come and check on you on a very, very regular basis, because here I am thinking that you'll wake up and come out when you're ready. But in reality, you could be facing all these sort of health issues that I am not equipped to deal with.
Verge of a coma, verge of a heart attack,
Absolutely, seizures.
Yeah.
Alcohol withdrawal can kill you.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads up to another question I have regarding the community portion, and I will use family as the defining term for that, just because of the proximity to our loved ones, whether it's a son or parent, sibling, whichever. They bring someone in for treatment. Okay, they realize, yes, I'm unequipped to handle this. Sleeping it off in the bedroom. This is not good for them. I need to get them in somewhere. They bring them to you. What is the best way for the family to I guess kind of like relating to the family side of this is like, what can that community know to help better in that role? Because they're submitting a loved one into your care. That does not mean they're washing their hands of it and it's done. They still love that individual. They still want to. They want to know how they're doing. They want to know what can they do. How can they prepare for what's next? I guess kind of help us bridge that gap a little bit.
So I would say personally, the number one thing that the family could do would hold their ground.
Yeah.
Which
we have mentioned that before. Just that that be consistent and don't.
And that comes with the intervention. If you give them a place to come back to with no consequences, an addict is going to do that. Their body wants that. Their brain wants that.
Okay.
And so in order, you have to drop them off and just stay, ask questions as much as you want. Once we get them in, they have to sign paperwork themselves to say that we can talk to you, because we are very secure. We don't know what that person's gone
So,
through.
so I get, just for clarity. So the addict signs the papers saying, yes, these people are allowed to talk to me.
Yes.
To them.
Saying that I can talk to you.
You can talk. You can talk to the family.
Yes.
Okay. So it's
Yes.
so yeah. Okay. I see.
If you were to come in and you were to ask me, is John Doe here? My answer is always going to be, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, I can't say. I'm not allowed to.
That sounds politician.
Well, and it's protecting the individual is what it's for.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't know who you are. We don't know why you're asking.
So
for
you won't.
them.
So you will not. And I think this is important for the family and the communities to recognize this. Is like when you have somebody who's involved with treatment, and they do not sign that form. You cannot divulge if they're there. You can't tell the family this is what's in their system. I mean, it's very much closed off.
Yes, we can't say anything, and that's just for the protection. We're not trying to be difficult. We are just.
Well, and that's hard for I think for family members to hear, because we submitted that little there's this nosy side, right? It's like, what's in their system.
And there's the concern side too. You want to make sure, and as much as I would love to help you, sometimes, unfortunately, family, there's family that is caring and that brought the addict in, and then we all know that sometimes family does not behave the way that ideally family should.
Yeah,
kind of like what we had talked about before, how the denial, the disease, everything is the addict, but the people who are closest to them and surround them have a tendency to have the same sort of denial and the same sort of maybe codependency or whatever that may be. Like their function is kind of based on the function of that addict, whether they realize it or not, and that's kind of what my belief is in this whole conversation that we're having, is to help that person that is around that addict to stop doing that, stop denying what's going on, stop closing your eyes to it, stop participating in it.
Well, and we've hit on this numerous times before, is where it does take a healthy community in order to help make somebody else healthy. And in terms of the treatment center, you guys,
that's a fully healthy community.
You got a healthy community right there, but at the same time, you have no idea if this person leaves this, are they entering into a healthy community or not. So we're going to protect their world so that this person can be made whole before they get out.
Yes, my number one priority, and all of ours as staff, is we will protect our patients.
How long is your treatment there? I don't know.
So generally it's going to be 28 days. That's give and take. If somebody needs a little bit more time, we can file for what's called an extension, and they can stay a little bit longer. Now with that, we also have Mayo Clinic owns intensive outpatient with lodging.
House.
Yes, we have an extended care house that has 10 beds. So patients can choose to go from the 28 days, and then they can choose to go next door. And that,
do you encourage that?
We do.
Do you personally?
I do.
Yeah.
I strongly encourage it. I think that.
Why do you encourage that?
Personally, I encourage it because I'm not sure 28 days is enough. That step down is a way to get involved in the community with safe.
Right.
The staff is not there.
You're not just plucking them and saying, "Okay, go have."
Well,
we gave you your tools.
Staff is not there. To patronize you. Staff is not there to make you feel any kind of inadequacy. Staff is there to have your back.
Yes.
You got a bad phone call after you got out of treatment. A lot of people think they went through that 28-day treatment, and they're very different, and so they come out and the world must be different.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's just not how it is.
Right.
And so they come out and they deal with a lot of problems.
Right.
You still have a court date you have to face.
Right.
You still have fines. You still have consequences, and people still don't trust you.
Right.
And now you are incredibly fragile,
Right.
More than you were
and you
before.
still have to face yourself. Which is a big deal.
Well, they say it's like what, between 30 and 40 days to create new habits, and that's being generously short.
Absolutely.
Very, very generous short. And so you give them 28 days, and so they are just getting to that point where they have a new routine in place in a protected environment, and then you are setting them loose on a world that hasn't changed. that people are still going to treat you this way. You still, like you said, you still have consequences. You still have those court dates. You still have to go through this process. You still have to deal with CPS. You still have to, the list goes on. And
do you provide services to help them through that, other than just the house?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We try to do an intake set them up with outpatient before they leave. And we try to do an intake as close as possible to that. Now, whether they don't go to our halfway house, we do like to set them up with sober living afterwards, if it is needed. It depends on the person. We're not going to ship you off across the country if you have, a wife, 5 kids, and a stable job waiting for you. The person also has a say in it. We do not lock people down. We don't, kidnap them or whatever.
But do you have like a worker that kind of follows along that path for them? Like, so let's say I just got out of treatment and I have to get back to my life, because that happens, I would imagine, a lot. And so I'm going back to where I'm at. Do I have access to that counselor that I got? Because I would assume that you tend to get a little close with your counselor because you're revealing intimate things. And so does that counselor kind of follow through with it, or is there somebody else that does it? Is it you?
It's me.
It is you. Okay.
Yes, it's me. We set people up. We make sure that our patients know that when you walk out our doors, that is not the end of our relationship.
Right.
They have our direct phone numbers. We will call every, once in a while and check up on them. Hey, how's it going?
Right.
We do still offer them to see our therapist, and make appointments with our therapist. We have in person and Zoom.
Yeah.
Incredible staff. I mean, just incredible. They're there because
from what I've met, they're very, very kind and very
absolutely.
caring,
I mean, they're there because
passionate.
we're there because we want to be there. So we have both the human side of it and also, the training and the knowledge side of it too.
Yeah.
And so we do keep up with people. I have people who call and say, maybe this halfway house isn't right for me. Okay, let me help you find a different one.
Or find some,
I have people who call and are like, I need a meeting tonight. What city are you in? I will find you one.
Yeah. No, and that's good. And I think we're gonna wrap it up right here.
Well, I have a couple of questions before we do that. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's say I can't go to treatment. What would you suggest that someone does who isn't, because not everybody goes to treatment. Not everybody even explores that idea. What would be your best suggestion for somebody who wants to get clean? What do they do? Where would they go if it isn't treatment?
I would say the first step would maybe be a self-help meeting, whether it be Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, Smart Recovery. There's different Zoom meetings.
Okay.
I mean, there is meetings everywhere. They're all over the internet. There is ones that you can have on the internet, or you can just find them on the internet and go in person. It's anonymous.
Right.
They don't ask for your name, your number. They don't ask for any promises. They don't ask you to sign a membership card. And it's just something to go, and you can sit in the back and you can listen. Now, a lot of meetings are open. I know here in town, the Narcotics Anonymous meetings are open, meaning that you can bring somebody with you for support.
Right.
I can only speak for Albert Lee, but I am a huge fan of our Sober Support Network because we are in a treatment town. And so a lot of our members are used to teaching. We are used to new addicts coming in. We're used to family members coming in. I mean, I've seen nurses, go to meetings just because they want to have that kind of knowledge, So bring somebody with. And if it goes great, then that's something that you can talk about with that person and you're not feeling alone. And if you feel like it's not for you, then that's something that you can talk about or laugh about later with your friend. Hey, remember that time we learned that or did an experience together? It's an hour out of your life, and it might change, and maybe if it doesn't affect you, maybe the person that you brought, have decided that it does affect them, and that's something that they want to go with.
So the benefit of, so you're saying that, if we don't go to treatment, go to a meeting. in one of those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, which is not always right, but the benefit of doing that is that you're experiencing other addicts who have been through it,
Mm-hmm.
and so they. Do you feel like so this is a little off of the Fountain Center's part of it, but do you think that it's better for an addict to learn from another addict who has been through it and doing recovery, or do you think that maybe the treatment side of it is a better way to wouldn't even know how to answer that actually, so I don't know why I'm putting you on.
I think both.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Both got to come together, and this is where expertise and testimony come together.
Right.
Why in the Bible it talks about we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So there's something important and vital about shared stories,
Right.
about sharing the battles we faced and what we've done to overcome them, how bad they were. Sometimes we can get a little bit nervous sharing some of our junk, but that's important because what if me being open about my story and how awful it was motivates somebody else to get out of their mess. Right. And that's where it comes in, where people see that, and maybe I can do this. Maybe I can get the help. Maybe this person who's gone through this can help me. But then at the same time, you have those who are healthy. You have those who have gone through the experts, who have gone through the training, the treatment centers that have that support network, and so it has to be both.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's doctors who, went on to study cancer because he was affected. His grandma died of cancer. Now, that's the same for every field. There's people in treatment who have chosen that path of life because they personally have been affected by treatment, whether it be through themselves or family.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things.
So you would encourage somebody to like that's kind of outside of it, say, maybe take them to a meeting, because that might actually encourage them to go to treatment, because I feel like because people have a tendency to not want to see, they put them blinders on, that they also don't really understand the process in getting this person somewhere, so I feel like you're right. A meeting is probably one of the biggest for me, that is essential to my maintenance and to my recovery. So is there? I know that there's helplines too that they have. And do you have anything to do with that? I'm kind of curious about that. Do you have anything? Do you know how to get to those helplines?
Oh, absolutely. I offer, part of my job as what I like to call me is the guy in the chair. Every superhero has a guy in the chair. And that's what I am. You can call me and you can say, I need this resource. I need a job in Rochester, Minnesota. And I'm a master Googler.
I like it.
Yes. And I will flood your inbox with different options for you. I'm a resource finder. I'm an advice giver. I'm a guy in the chair.
Which I think is like having you here present for these discussions. For the audience that watches these, seeing that they have that resource, and then even having the ability to have you join us and take time out of your schedule to be here. I love it because to me, I'm like, that falls right into these parameters. This is a great connecting point.
Right, because our last one was on intervention, and kind of what that looks like and everything else. Are we experts? No, but you are.
We want to bring the experts in to this conversation.
And so the other thing I wanted to ask you about is so what would you encourage the family and the addict to do if they can't do the treatment, if they can't, if it's just not possible? I feel like it should be possible no matter what, but that some people just are not going to do some of these things. So what is something that you would encourage them beyond just a meeting to explore maybe, or to kind of push to get that person at least some exposure to what recovery might look like?
Beyond just the meetings, I would encourage them, to just call and find out more information. I agree with you that a lot of times, there's many reasons why people can't go to treatment, in their own minds. The number one
That's
is,
key, in their own minds.
yeah, the number one is, I have a job.
Right.
Well, we all know that legally, your workplace has to allow you to go and seek,
Right.
help for substance use
I've got a
disorder.
job, I've got a spouse, I've got kids.
On top of that, legally having to, there's also FMLA, so as far as, the
Right.
money part of it, there's that. And then if you look at it from an outside looking in, you might lose 28 days, or you could end up, continuing on with your addiction, and you may end up in jail for 9 months. Which one,
20 years.
which one is,
Right.
Right.
you may end up, you're home with your kids and your wife for those 28 days, but if you're under the influence of substances, are you there?
Right.
That's a good
Well,
point.
and the way that they think is, I'm not gonna leave my family. I'm not gonna leave my wife and kids. I'm not going to leave my job. I'm gonna stay here with them. I'm not gonna get into treatment because I can't leave. They're not thinking the 9 months in prison.
Mhm.
They're not thinking about the long-term consequences. They're not thinking CPS. They're not thinking those. They're just thinking that it's very much immediate.
And that's where the family comes in. We have many, many people who have come in and said, my wife says I cannot come home unless I'm sober.
Yeah. Well, and that takes that immediate household to be in that place and saying,
have some strength.
This is, you are not coming back into this place.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard place to be.
And following through with
and follow through with that.
And following through.
I think it's harder when we see couples that are involved and that they are in it together, and so it's like, okay, now we're not just addressing the one family member. Now we're addressing the family member and a spouse, and getting them into treatment that way, and the mess that can create.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious too. I mean, I think I kind of know this, but so something that might be troublesome for someone to get into treatment or whatever is because it's an exposure. Okay, where did this person disappear to for 30 days? Well, we all kind of, you know what I mean? So how can you get that person to get, to be like, okay, your exposure is minimal to what it could be. You know what I mean? Like, is there a way to kind of talk them through that? Like, do you guys do that at the treatment? Do you kind of talk them through, like, because you have initial contact, I'm assuming, and that's prior to them actually getting into the treatment. Do you kind of talk them through that? Because I know one of my fears would be, well, I don't want to be exposed as an addict. I don't want people to know I was smoking meth, because a lot of people don't want people to know.
Absolutely. We protect patient privacy above all else.
Right.
We HIPAA, is very, very, very important to us. Right. That is our number one rule, is patient privacy. We do not disclose anything. There is no cameras. There is, I'm not allowed to even pull out my cell phone,
Right.
Maybe possibly somebody gets caught in the background in a frame. We don't take our paperwork home with us. We don't expose absolutely any names. And that's not just our job, but it's a lot of our licensure, depends on that. A lot of us have gone to school and earned certifications and things. We can lose a lot just by, exposing that.
Your personal certification and your certification as a facility is all at risk.
Oh, absolutely. We are, Fort Knox.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything out of us. We have professionals come through there. We have people come through there, and we absolutely protect their privacy. We are on a different unit. We are on a different floor. We are separated from the main hospital.
Right.
You don't have a group of treatment people walking through and everyone's like, these are the people in treatment currently.
Right.
So the family also, you would let them know that as well, because I know, people don't, and this is what discourages me the most, is that people don't understand that the more that we keep things in the dark and the hide and just in denial about it, the worse things will get because you know, I mean, if you box them in, which is kind of maybe a bad word, but or a bad way to put it, but if you don't allow them to spin out like this, and you kind of bring it into this, okay, this is your parameters. it might kind of push them a little bit, you think? I don't know, and that's the problem with addiction, is that everybody's different. Everybody's used different substances, and so you it's just it's excuse my language, but it's kind of a big mind fuck, and we just don't we can't fully, like, you can't just say, well, this is what an addict looks like, because that's not the truth, is it? Because an addict doesn't have a specific this is what it is, because everybody has their own like my addiction was to meth. Well, an alcoholic looks completely different, but they're still using a drug. In my, this is my thing, but but they are, it seems like alcoholics are more functionable, so they're a little harder to see, whereas someone who's on meth is is a freaking mess, and it's pretty easy to see, but we need to kind of close in on that, and so how do you go about it?
That's the open part of the discussion where you look at the science, you look at the symptoms, you do your research. For me, what are the symptoms of this? I'm not a Google master. Maybe I'm a Google apprentice. I don't know if I'm that one, but I consider I could pull up and be like, all right, hey, look, these are the symptoms. I'm like, don't. When I look at the symptoms online and you get the whole list, I'm not like, yeah, they have that one symptom. They're an addict. They take the whole list, kind of a thing. Like, yes, they have this, they have that, they have this, they have this, they have that, and then you get us that. I think as far as like the family submitting someone into a care or treatment program, that you can't share these details. Yes, we can't tell you what they're on. We can't. You're creating a box around this individual. Like they said, like you said, you're talking about restraining them. You got this isolation center. Hey, we're gonna put you in this isolation here. As far as the family goes, that's where there's a lot of trust. We have to trust the center to do. You know what I'm saying? Because the family's like, we want to be hands-on, we want to have all this, but we can't, HIPAA laws. And so for us, in order to respect not just our loved ones, but you guys as well, we have to allow that trust to take place and be like, okay, my and this is like the weird hands-off, hands-on comes into play. The way I see it is because hands-off, they're in your care. But I have to have my hands still on in part, because when that individual comes back out, I have to maintain what they're coming out as.
Yeah, well, it's not even just back out. Our family is very involved in our programming.
Okay.
If the patient and the family choose to be.
Yes.
We...
Going back to that permission slip.
The patient has a lot of autonomy, more than people would think.
Okay.
We do not force a lot of things, because ultimately the patient's going to make their own choices. I can tell you to do something 28 days. On day 29, you might not do it, or you might do the opposite. Ultimately, it's up to you. We try to work with the patient. These are adults.
Yes.
When they come to us, they are vulnerable adults, but they are adults.
Right.
And so we treat them as such.
Yeah.
And same with the family. Now, for the first 3 days, we ask that they don't contact their family, just simply because we want them to get a handle, and we want them to get acclimated. Right. There's also, if they choose to leave, if I've been here 2 hours and I say I want to go, we are not going to block you. There's our phone. You can use it to call whoever you want. In best case scenario, mom answers and says, I'm not coming to get you.
Right. That's that hands-on part comes into play, like you said, where yes, hands off. I'm trusting you. I'm respecting my loved one. I'm respecting the treatment facility, but I'm not gonna get you.
I'm not coming to get you. I myself went to treatment in Rochester, and there was no option of walking out because I had nowhere to go.
Yep.
So I might as well. My family said we'll come and get you on the day that they let you out, and not a minute before. Yeah. And these families think that they're helping them, but unfortunately, more times than not, it's not a success story when you walk out of treatment. Right. More times than not, hopefully they will call back and change their mind. And we get that a lot. People walk out and then 2 days later they call and say, can I please come back? Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah, your room is still here. We haven't changed
if we can. We won't save beds if there's somebody in our lobby that needs us, but yes, we will get you back.
Opportunity allows.
Oh, absolutely. We're in that business. We understand the clientele that we are working with. People change their minds.
Yeah.
But in best case scenario, the family says, I love you so much that I'm not going to come and get you. Yeah. You will stay there.
And that goes right back to that whole, that tough love conversation that we've had before is, yes, I love you. I support you. I'm not going to enable you.
I won't love you into the grave.
Yes. That's exact. And that's
a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also that there are times when, well, probably more than not, but where the person who is trying to get them in treatment is like, I am done with this crap. They have had enough.
Yes.
Right. And generally, the family has had enough long before the addict is ready to change.
Right. And I think the hard part in that one is, again, because we do it all out of love. At least we should be doing it all out of love. And so you have the hard line. I think the hard part with the family who are so done with it is how do you remind them that we still love you, even though we're done. And that's that knife's edge that we've kind of talked about before.
That's where
we offer that also. We have family education that is just for the family without awesome. The addict. Okay. And so the family can, with an expert, a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. So the family can ask their questions. Okay. The family, if they choose to participate in that, the family can get their education and they can get what they need out. Then we also offer family week that we meet with, and we combine the family and the addict in front of a safe and supportive environment.
So your goal is to kind of try and get the family healthy as well.
It's very holistic.
And I love that idea because that's kind of what I kind of feel like that's what this is about. Is that we want the family to be healthy enough to be able to
healthy community, make a healthy individual.
Absolutely. And a lot of times addicts, when they go through that 28 days, we're like, go back and let's start getting your life straight. And they're like, you know what? I've always had problems with my mother. I'm going to go home and I'm going to confront her today and I'm just going to fix it, and it's like, sometimes you need that supportive environment and that expert that is there,
Just be forewarned, take it graciously. She's coming.
And so a lot of times it's both parties are just trying to reach each other and they're trying to help, but they don't know exactly what to do. So
there's probably so much garbage in between that's happened that they haven't had a chance
match,
to
and
really...
nobody's being heard and nobody's hearing.
So is there a way? Is there a means for families to contact that level of counseling, even though they don't have their loved one is not in treatment yet? Are they able to, we have these online videos and that might be one thing, but we're not counselors. We're not professionals. Everything we do is just simply us talking about the issue. But is there a way for, let's say there's a family, they have a grown child their child's refusing treatment, and this family needs help to deal with it. Do they have a hotline they can call
to get themselves
that kind of help?
Yes.
Even though they're trying to.
There's an entire support network for that, and that's Al-Anon.
Okay.
But on top of that, I encourage people calling a treatment center to ask questions and ask help is not enrolling in the treatment center. It is just calling.
Well, and that's as a pastor, that's one of the things that I do, where people in the community, individuals I know, and they want help. So what do? I'm that mediator where I'm calling Teen Challenge, or I'm calling other treatment centers. Hey, do you have open rooms? Mm-hmm. What does the billing cycle look like? How do you use insurance? And so I'm writing those things out, doing my own research, and then I can run and I tell them, hey, family, this is how this works.
Yes.
And doing that. And so that's what I've done in helping families deal with this issue. Mm-hmm. But even having that additional resource further on, hey, you know what, your family, mom, dad, brother, sister, spouse, you're dealing with this. Here's a professional who can give you encouragement and strength beyond my limited capabilities.
If you call me and you don't know what you're doing and you don't know if you're ready yet, there is not, I'm not going to write down your address and trace the call
Right.
and
We will knock on your door tomorrow and
yeah, I'm not going to go
Right.
find you at Walmart. I'm going to walk you through it. And maybe you call 2 weeks from now, and then maybe you call a month later, and then 6 months from now, you're in our doors.
Right.
Just call and just ask questions and,
And I think having people, because families of users, they can feel very isolated. They're the users experiencing their own shame, but then there's the family side of it that's like, no one else gets what I'm going through. This is overwhelming, and for them, it's very much I need to have someone to talk to.
mm-hmm.
And then to hear that if they watch this, they're going to hear that it is available. A quick search or even calling a clinic can set you up with the right number. You're not admitting them. You're getting help for yourself as well. And a phone call to ask questions is free.
Or even just exploring the idea of what, because we don't always come in like, okay, I'm going to make this big change. You're right. Sometimes it's a gradual thing. I would like to ask you, my last question would be, okay, so how as a family member who has an addict in my family, what would is there anything that I can do to kind of push that or to what do I do to get that person to go, or is that just not possible, to get them to treatment? Or is there like a catalyst, that I can is there something that I can do that would push them in that direction? Or is it just kind of really, you got to kind of wait till they spin completely out of control? Do you have any ideas on that? I know that that's a very
very wide, very broad.
Right, very broad question.
Tough love.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it's, it really is just tough love. It's a lot, it's hard, and I understand that, but it's a lot easier to, have somebody go to a 28-day program, and it may feel like, for you, that's rock bottom, that this is my son's rock bottom is going into treatment.
Right.
Reality is rock bottom is, 18 years old with a long prison sentence. Rock bottom is,
under dirt,
wrecking your future in a second, in a mistake.
We had an individual when we were living in Texas that went missing, that we were involved with the community and that in our church down there, and they went missing over a period of time, and it was discovered. They were discovered a few days later, dead, naked in a ditch. And it was because of that drug relation. Like, so when you talk about rock bottom, real rock bottom is, like you said, in the dirt. Literally, like if they're that's the last straw. You can't go past that. And so what can we do to do anything to make sure that we do not arrive at that conclusion? What steps? That tough love is, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that result is not my loved one's case. When we have fentanyl crises in our city where youth are ODing on fentanyl, where we have to have Nioxalon access sites, or these drug recovery in case somebody does OD on a particular chemical. What are we doing? We are trying to make sure that this result doesn't happen, and we're going to do whatever we can to get that. And that does mean, and this is the tough question too, is not a question, more of a statement, but we have to allow ourselves, family, friends, community, to become public enemy number one in their eyes, to look at us as public enemy number one, because we don't want to allow them to continue that mess.
Jails,
I would rather
institutions, and death. That's the result of addiction, and I think that people need to understand exactly what that means. It is jails, institutions, or death.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, or you can take a path to recovery. But so the family and the people around them need to understand that that is a real thing, and that there's if you don't want that for your loved one, then you need to not enable them. You need to not deny what's going on. You need to shine light on this addict, and you need to push them however that looks. Because if you love them, you're not gonna. You may not be able to avoid some of that. Let me first put that out there. But you're going to do everything you can, because death institutions, jails, that's their results. 2%. I know we've talked about this before. 2% of people who are addicts die in recovery. So 98% of how can we change that? The way we change that is that we stop enabling, we stop denying it, we stop closing our eyes off to it, we stop worrying about what other people think. We get ourselves healthy, right? And then we push that person, whatever that means. You close, if the more you restrict it, the less that room they have to move, the more likely that they're going to start feeling that rock bottom a little bit sooner. And that's just my opinion, and I am far from being an expert on it. But, I feel like I need to repeat that. Jails, institutions, and death. That is the result. So, if you don't want that, then you need to get past your own feelings. I fully understand you love an addict, but you need to get past that, and you need to stay strong and get some people to support you, whatever that looks like. But you have to understand fully that those are the results. So how do we change that? What can we do? Yeah. Jessica is a great resource.
Yeah.
She can help you. The whole point in this conversation, I feel like, is for people to understand that they do have resources.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Can reach out.
It's seeking help,
Right.
Not just for the addict, but for everybody around them.
Right.
I have seen addicts get on the phone and, Mom, they are not letting me have food. Mom, they're keeping my medication from me. You laugh, but
it's a manipulation. And no, because we've had this discussion where I'm going to manipulate, lie. I'm going to do everything I can, because my main goal is to get get high.
Thank you.
Right. Sorry. It's to get high. Well, that doesn't change just because I'm in treatment.
Right.
It might at a certain point, and I think it does a lot. I think most addicts, when they go into treatment, don't want to be there. Right. But there gets to a point where they suddenly realize, like, maybe this is better for me.
Right.
And they start to try, a different.
Well, and that's where the mind begins to reassert itself. Like, their mind is switching into a healthy track right there. I'm saying it's, I'm not. It is healthy. I'm saying it's switching into that healthy state.
Right.
Where
absolutely, we take them out of the chaos.
Right.
We give them a different environment, and we show them that there is a different way. We let them meet their sober self for sometimes the first time in decades.
Yeah.
And we give them something to be proud of. If they complete treatment, for me and for many other addicts, it's the first thing that they have successfully done in how long?
Right.
It is the first thing that they've done for themselves, for their family. Nobody comes skipping into treatment thinking they're the best person in the world.
Right.
There's a lot of shame and there's guilt. When you complete treatment, the smile on somebody's face and the genuine pride they have in themselves is incredible.
That's awesome.
When somebody has decided to stay. And now you say jails, institutions, and death is rock bottom. I disagree. Death seems like rock bottom. Mm-hmm. But for me, from the things that I have seen, causing death is rock bottom.
Right.
I have seen, the kid who passed along the drugs to his friends because he wanted money for sneakers, new sneakers, kid, and now he has caused the death of 3 people.
Wow. So you're not looking at just the one individual that is in the far gone conclusion. You're seeing the cause of that conclusion.
In his court testimony, I wish it was me. Wow. How many drunk drivers have we seen? I wish it was me.
I wasn't saying that was rock bottom. I'm saying that was the result.
Yeah.
Those are the results that happen.
Yeah.
And you're right. My actions may not be the result of that, but my actions could be the result for somebody else. And so I fully agree. and so you were saying that this is, I know this is getting a little bit, but you were saying that you as a peer recovery specialist, is that what it's called? That they are going to start implementing that in all institutions as far as like treatment centers and things like that, or is it just Mayo?
No, it's statewide. You know.
Okay,
statewide.
So there's a way to reach out wherever you are, to someone who can help you and just guide you, you know. And if you just take that step, that's all you got to do.
Treatment centers in general, not just certified peer recovery specialists, but treatment centers in general, you know, they're started for a reason. That person could have probably started a chain of laundromats. This is a difficult business to be in. Right. And those of us that choose this, we choose it for a reason. It's not an easy job. Sometimes it is very difficult, emotionally, mentally, you know, but this is what we do. And even though, you know, coming into treatment may be the worst day of somebody's life, and getting your loved one into treatment is absolute chaos for you, this is what I do, and this is my life. I wake up every day and I walk into this chaos.
Wow.
Right.
And this is what we thrive in. This is what we train for.
Yeah. That's what's wonderful is the passion in there. Like we it's not just something because I need a job. No, there's a passion. There's a reason for
absolutely.
this, and we love people. So
stop thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
And just make that call.
Yeah.
Because there are resources, there are people.
Yes.
And you have to think about some of the results.
Yeah. It's just a phone call, and you can hang up the phone
whenever you want.
Yep.
So I could be like, hey, whoops, and hang it up.
Yeah, call me back anytime, and I'll keep answering. This is the nature of the business, and this is what I do.
I think this is awesome. And for the sake of time, we're gonna conclude it right here. What we will see when this video is published, in the description, you will find a number to contact multiple different treatment facilities so that you can enter into care, or maybe as a family member, you got somebody that you want to call and contact with, get someone to talk to, beyond just, not even just the church, but I'm talking like other treatment facilities that are fantastic for you to get your help and your encouragement that you may need. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you guys. Thank you, and we hope to have you back again sometime soon, Jessica.
Absolutely.
Because we really only got to the initial part.
Yeah,
and there's so
much, you know, involved.
So
and this was a fun one, and so we look forward to that. So thank you for joining us. God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.